Well, I'm making this video to ask a question, what makes us happy as humans? And I guess I'll just dive right into it since there's no need for introductions or various nonsense. Getting right to the point and right to the approach that I'm trying to take, which is that we have to fool ourselves sometimes. And I guess I should rephrase that. Sometimes we have to be content with what we have. And often, usually that's enough, depending on what we have. And I'm going to try to put this in a way where I'm not generalizing everyone, because it's the most difficult thing to talk about is what makes us happy. Because there is that word, I still can't remember what it is. I heard it the other day, and it's one word it's a word that describes the realization that everyone around you has the same issues in life, that they have the same experiences, as far as not the same exact experiences, but rather they have their own life experiences that determine who they are and how they act and how they react to certain things, what makes them happy. And, I could beat myself up over when I was younger, generalizing people like everyone else does, saying everyone is just idiots, everyone is sheeple, people just aren't aware of what's going on in the world. And I realized as I grew, age-wise and mentally, that wasn't true. That just as many people are well aware that the world has shortcomings, but that are doing their best to live a normal life. What makes me happy is the obvious things that a person might say makes them happy. Family, being with my family, watching my children sleep, cuddling with my wife and watching a movie, sitting and watching a beautiful sunset. But if I start getting into things like watching a sunset or walking through the woods or this or that, most of these things are better when I'm with my family. Everything's better with your family, but it's not always that way for people. So while I can sit here and say that I'm happy with my family, I've talked to people who say they love their family, but it's almost out of obligation. For example, the couple that's staying together merely because they have children and they don't want their children to have to suffer the divorce. So rather than have a divorce when the kids are young, they choose to live and argue and fight in front of the kids for, decades. This is out of the love for family, but it's not really love. It's more of a tolerance and acceptance. It's the way, and I'm using that as a metaphor for how we get so easily sucked into feeling a certain way and dealing with it and just accepting it for what it is. And sometimes this is necessary. In fact, this is the human mind and the human condition. It's part of our genetic heritage, the way that the human mind works, that we're designed to forget painful things. And once in a while we'll remember something and be like, wow, how could I forget that? How could I forget when that happened? And it's because it was a painful moment. Physical and mental pain are treated the same way by the brain. So if a person has physical pain, you really learn to respect not being in pain. And the same way with mental pain or emotional pain, that when you have it and it becomes chronic, because I've had chronic physical pain, and I know what it's like to just become used to that way of living. And it's the same thing exactly with mental pain or anguish, that we learn to tolerate it and accept it, and it becomes our way of life. And the brain is able to shut out those painful realities because it's a condition we have as humans to protect us. If a person grows up in an environment where it's very hostile, and let's take for example a person who from the Western world, a person from a big city or whatnot is thrown into a third world country where it's chaos, war, poverty, hardly any fresh drinking water. This person might go completely apeshit trying to, reconcile how am I going to live happily and function here. Meanwhile, the people who live there have just always been that way. It's just what they know. And it doesn't mean it's okay. And I'm not sitting here saying it's okay to be poor. or to be, in poverty. I'm just saying that we learn to deal with it. And just like me, living paycheck to paycheck or being rich, it's just all in the eye of the beholder and the person who. So anyway, the realization that money doesn't make us happy is like probably one of the most important things. I mean, it seems to be such an obvious thing to me that money doesn't make me happy. But also to understand that it doesn't mean abandoning money, because money is our method of exchange. See, in other words, people have put it well by saying, money doesn't make me happy, but but not having it makes me unhappy. How about that? And not being able to afford your food, not being able to buy the things you need and get the things fixed. For example, I have 3 cars in the driveway that don't run, and we've been borrowing one. There's 2 reasons for that. One is the laziness. There are several reasons, but I've learned to just accept the fact that we don't have a car, even though we have 3 cars in the driveway. We just had a mechanic over here a couple hours ago, and he fixed it. It was a fuel pump in the Honda. And I'd had another mechanic over here before, and he had checked it, and I assumed he'd gone through the spark, fuel, all the stuff, and because he had been disassembling and taking stuff apart, and then he left halfway through. And anyway, it took the guy a couple hours, and it was done. The Honda's probably the same thing. It's just a little clutch problem. My Astro van's the same thing, except for he said it's probably just a solenoid, for not even the transmission. My point for bringing up all this car stuff is that when we live, when we get used to living a certain way, for example, when my back went out and I didn't need my van anymore for construction, it just started sitting there, and it just became an incorporated part of the driveway. And no, I'm not white trash. I don't have like lawn gnomes out and garbage just strewn on my lawn or anything. I just have 3 cars that don't run. Now there's 2, and they'll probably be running in a couple weeks. The guy will probably have them done in a few hours. Once I have those cars again running, I'll just laugh at myself and think, how did I ever function without this in my life? But that's retrospect, I mean, at this moment in time, it's like, I guess I don't really need a car, I mean, my wife works, we usually have the car here when we need to pick up the kid from school. There's 2 days a week when I have to walk and pick him up like 8 blocks, big deal. I don't go anywhere, really do anything. I'm a stay-at-home dad most of the time, so. And I've learned to accept that lot too. Yeah, what I do, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and a lot of guys would break doing this. And I'm not trying to say that I'm, better or I can handle things better than other guys, but for the men that have to be manly and prove themselves, living as a stay-at-home dad, not bringing in any income is could be one of the most, breaking things to a guy. But I accept it because it's what I'm doing right now. And in a couple of years, when I have a job, maybe I'll find something that's less taxing on my body, where I'm doing something that I actually enjoy, that I'm going to do consistently for a long period of time. I'll look back on today and say, oh yeah, there was that period, I guess it's just, I'm trying to say that retrospect, looking back on things, we can always say things could have been better or different, but I'm going to say it. It is what it is. And, but it doesn't have to be what it is. It's just a matter of how we handle it, I guess. So, I tend to get way off track here of what makes us happy, but it seems that way anyway. But this is all part of the same picture of who we are as individuals that helps us to determine who we are. I'm still learning who I am. I don't even know. I mean, I thought I knew in my 20s. I definitely thought I knew in my teen years. In my 20s, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And then by my 30s, I realized I didn't know who I was. And by my, about 5-6 years ago, I started going through a major change mentally. And this change went through many phases. Phases of acceptance of everyone, phases of dismissal of everyone, phases of tolerance of all religions, phases of hating all religions. Not hating, but I don't like to use the word hate because it's such a strong word. And it's probably because I have it tattooed on my knuckles. Since I was 14 years old, I did it with a needle and ink, just tink, tink, tink. reminds. Don't even tell me I can get it removed, because I know. I I remind this. This is, I guess, a perfect metaphor for what I'm making, is to remember this time in my life. Remember, I was in a bad mood. My dad had just died. I wasn't in the right state of mind to be thinking clearly, tattooing things on my knuckles. But thinking back, it reminds me that I was a dumb kid at one time. And it reminds me that I'm a dumb adult right now. And that I'm going to look back and say, you were a dumb adult too. At least I hope so. Because if I don't look back on today, 20 years from now, and say, oh God, you were an idiot sometimes, then I will not have grown. If that makes sense. So I accept who I am, and I accept what I am, and I accept that my happiness is going to come in waves, but I'm only going to be able to create it myself. There's no magic answer for, I better check the time here. Yeah. Hate doing that. There's no magic answer for happiness. But I guess since I got so long into this, I might as well cover the main point I wanted to really get across, was that no one thing makes us happy for a long period of time. It doesn't matter. Your family may always make you happy, but your kids will grow up. You may be completely in love and lust, and eventually you're still in love, but it's not the same. Like, you can't use your relationship as the basis for life. In other words, you can't just be all consumed by that. Eventually, no matter what you have, it's just like having a lot of money. Eventually, you're looking for something else, and buying things with that money doesn't do any good either. So, setting all material goods aside, and materials include love, family, things that can be lost or taken from you, okay? This is the main point to take away here. Anything that can be taken from us is fleeting. Anyone who could leave us, or anything that can be stripped from us, is fleeting, and is not to be considered in our basis for total internal happiness. In other words, we can use people for happiness, and that's what we do. They make us happy, we make them happy. It's a simpatico, It's we're sharing this love with each other, and we can't deny that. We can't pretend like that's not what it is. It's not a bad thing. It's like, goes back to the old, everything we do is for selfish reasons. To an extent, it kind of is, but setting all that aside, what makes us happy as individuals is going to be finding truth and wisdom and solace and comfort within this world of confusion. And to do that, we have to look at things from a new approach, from the way we usually do. Meaning, every day we have to ask ourselves, what did I have yesterday that I don't have today, and how does that affect me? Or what do I have today that I didn't have yesterday, vice versa. And just remembering that when we were younger and we had less, we were happy with it. And as we get older, it seems like we're always looking for something more. And we have to stop looking for more and just be happy with what we are. And it's a very difficult thing to do, because we're always looking for a distraction. That's the human condition. Always looking for a distraction. Peace, everybody. Take care.